Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mortgage Coaches Training Thursday. This is Lori Lytle, and I'll be your trainer for this call. So today what we're going to work on are refinance strategies. So with that, we're going to really dive into different ways of doing a refinance. In just a moment, we'll cover exactly what we're going to be reviewing. But first, what I want to do is I want to show you our new support center. We have recently moved to a new support center. We have a different look. And with that, when you press the help button, this is what you're going to see now when you're in Mortgage Coach. You press the help button. You have the search engine, very helpful, be able to search a topic. So if you wanted to search for mortgage insurance, if you spell it correct, you could see how you could go ahead and do this, and with the knowledge base, we'll return any assets that are related to mortgage insurance. I also want to point out, if you go down further, we have actually segmented different support questions. So you have Mortgage Coach, you could go into Rate Watch. We also have frequently asked questions, as well as resources. So if you click on the resources, we have a lot of webinar trainings, special guests, and more information over to the right-hand side, different articles and things that you go through. So I did want to point out that to you. It's a nice new look, and want you to be able to start using that database. So when you press help, that is our new support center. So with everyone, with this call, this is a QA training. So it's a little bit different if you've been on our various trainings that we've had. With our QA, what we do is it is definitely an interaction. So what I would like you to do is open up the question area in your GoToMeeting and let me know where you're from and what company you're from, because this gives me an idea who's on an enterprise account and I can address the questions accordingly. So today, while you're putting that in the question area, I just want to review our topic really quick. Hey, Maury, Houston, Texas. Lewis, Sherman Oaks, down here in California. All right. So that's great. So let me go ahead. Prime Lending. Hey, Mark, how's it going? Another Texas person, Dallas there. So again, if you could put where you're from, that does help, and it helps me be able to address the questions. So what we're going to work on today is a refinance strategy. And so I've created 4 presentations here, and this will be able to show you how we're going to develop a simple, just a rate reduction refinance, but then how to really change the data and be able to show how it could be advantage for the borrower to refinance. And with this particular presentation today, this was a ticket that came in through our support. So these are live numbers, a live scenario. So this should be able to help you a little bit more understanding different fields for the current mortgage, such as the remaining balance versus the current mortgage payoff field. So we're going to really dive into that kind of information. And hello, Jeff and Ferre. We got someone in Georgia now, so that's great. So again, anyone who's joined the call, please open up your question area. Let me know where you're from, what company, so I can address the questions accordingly. So what you're looking here is just a basic refinance. We have a current mortgage, and it's a 15-year term. And we're going to refinance it, and you can see there's just a rate reduction. So with this, this mortgage, as we go into, oh, hey, Brad, nice that you're joining us, El Segundo. So different training that we're having on the QA. So with this, we have a rate reduction, and it's just going to be a 15-year refinance, but you'll notice the freedom point. You can see that they're barely a year into the loan, and this particular loan officer is going to suggest refinancing. So with this is just a plain reduction. You can see how they're saving money in that monthly payment. So this is really quick. People tend to look at that. But with our fees, after 5 years, they haven't recouped the cost yet. So they're still, if they're going to be in there longer than 5 years, that's great. But let's work on the refinance more, see what we could do to see if it's advantageous to refinance. So just to cover the short-term savings over the 5 years, what does this represent and why is it negative? So if we click on the More Info button, let's take a look at how those numbers are comprised. So we take our interest and mortgage insurance, for that 5-year period. And these are the totals. So you can see how that new refinance on that 15-year with the lower rate, how much less interest and MI they're paying. But with the new mortgage, you have fees. So with that, this is the unrecoverable cost on the new mortgage. We take that total cost, and we do our comparison. So at this point in time, because of the cost and the fees, they have not recouped those costs. So we'll work with this a little bit more. We'll be able to find that break-even point so you know how to be able to show that to your borrower. What we're also going to work on, let me go ahead and clear out my highlights here. I'm using that clear all button at the bottom, clears out the highlights really quick. The other item besides, the short-term area we want to focus on is the freedom point. We want to get that freedom point matching the same, so they're on that same path toward payoff. So we're going to work with the freedom point, and let me move to the presentation number 2 to show you what we're going to do. And that's presentation number 1. So, okay, so we're on presentation number 2, and you can see here on the freedom point. The freedom point now matches, and what I have done to get that to match is I went into our reduction payment, and I'm applying $60 toward principal, and then that will keep me on path to the same payoff time. So with that, with the new P&I and $60, you can see with the monthly savings, they still have additional money that they're saving, and they still keep on that same freedom point payoff term. Then we're going to focus a little bit more, and we're going to focus on the current mortgage and payoff. So with this, what we're going to do is, you can see on presentation number 2 here, and this is how I find out. I put it in my payment notes. I went ahead and put an indicator of which presentation these are. You can see my cash to close is around $5,000. What I want to do with that is, I know that the borrower has additional money from reserves that he can apply toward the principal. So we're going to take that, we're going to reduce that ending balance, and use the current payoff field to be able to show how we would be able to, 1, get the loan to value down to 80% so we can remove that monthly mortgage insurance. And by using that current payoff, it also reflects on the cash to close. I know it's a little confusing just showing you these different figures on here, but when we dive into the data fields, you really be able to understand all these different pieces. So what we're doing is going to take a presentation where it's just a particular rate and term, or rate reduction, and then we're going to go and drop the LTV down to 80%, and you can find that LTV percentage in your closing cost details right here. You'll be able to see right now we're at 90%, and we want to be able to move that down to 80% so we can remove that monthly insurance. So let's go ahead and work with the refinance, and I want to ask anyone there if you can go ahead and put it in the question area. Are you working with refinances? What type of refinance is that you work with? If you want to go ahead and put that in here. But at least with this, we're going to work with refinance strategy, and we're going to build and allow you to understand the questions you can ask, as well as how you'll be able to show that on your Mortgage Coach presentation. So if you're going to follow along, go ahead and log into your Mortgage Coach Edge account. And earlier when I was talking about the support page, just click on that help button in your Mortgage Coach Edge account, and it will take you directly to that help center, the knowledge center there. So let me go ahead and bring up my presentation here, and we're going to go ahead and walk through it. I do have the data fields already filled in, so if you are following along, the data fields will be there. You could go ahead and just go ahead and fill in that information. It's always good just to have that hands-on experience, so even if you're not developing that presentation, open up your account, open up a new client, and just walk through the fields with me. Just hit the return so you can see these fields, understand where they lie within the different tabs down at the base. So with that, I just went ahead and just put in my basic information about my borrower. Remember, friendly name field is very important. This allows you to identify which presentation. recall that I had 4 particular presentations I built. This friendly name field lets me know which one I'm working with. So we do have a copy feature, and then you'll be able to identify each presentation through that friendly name field. So moving on the goal screen, I just left this empty. I'm not doing a purchase, so I don't have to mark this. Again, through this training, what I want to do is be able to provide the least steps of creating a presentation for you to get a move in and out quickly. So then what we're going to do is set up our current mortgage data. And primarily in this assumption screen, you can see I have 3 screens. We have our spending, which is the screen you're seeing now. And this is just collecting that appraisal, things like that. We're then going to fill out the information for that current mortgage and then the monthly costs on that. So first off, you can see that I put the purchase value of $185. I also have currently the payoff amount empty. We will circle back so we can understand how this particular field works and how data in this field reflects on the output. So now let's move on to the current mortgage. And a lot of times this is the screen where people have the most difficulty, only because they don't have all this information readily at hand. But if you're working with an existing client, you have this information. So with that, you can see that I have a first payment date of January 2016, again under that 12 months, brand new loan. The original loan amount was about $10,000 less than what that property value is now. They had a 3.5 rate and a turn of 180. So when you put this information in, you can see at the very bottom of the screen, we do provide that P&I payment. So you'll be able to confirm this is the payment that the borrower has, and you can also then be able to view the data above. So if that P&I payment is not what the borrower has told you, you can work these numbers, because a lot of times if you don't know these fields, if it's a new client and you don't know that existing mortgage data, a lot of times the borrower tends not to know this either. So say this is what they provided you, but this P&I isn't quite right. What you could do is then modify these data fields depending on how on the different data you want. So say if they weren't quite sure of that interest rate, you tried 3.5, incorrect P&I. If you put 4%, you can see how we go ahead and recalculate that payment. So this way you could go ahead and then determine, you can see the different remaining balance changes as well as that P&I payment. So you can see how these 3 particular fields work in conjunction, and then we do provide that payment. So let's go ahead and put this back at 3.5% and our term of 180. You can see we do calculate the remaining balance, and as we build on our basic refinance, we're going to go ahead and modify this as well. So when you're doing cash out, this is the field that we're going to talk about. So we'll come back. Let's first build the basic refinance strategy and then just build more on this current mortgage. So with that, let's go to the monthly cost screen. And if you have any questions, just how to key in this basic information on the refi, please open up the question area and let me know any kind of questions. So now let's go into our monthly cost screen. So we knew, because again, it's an existing client, I knew what the hazard and the property taxes were. They have HOA dues. You could see how you can go ahead and override the word other to put in the description for that other monthly cost. So I went ahead and put that dollar amount there, as well as the mortgage insurance. So it's pretty basic setup between that current mortgage and the monthly costs. So it's not too much different than your product screen here. So let's go ahead and build on our products, and then we're going to come back and start adjusting the input on the current mortgage so you'll be able to see how it relates to the presentation itself. So let's move to the products. In the products, I went ahead and labeled it a conventional 15-year. And you can see how if you hover your mouse over, we do want the characters for that title to be less than 12 characters. So with that, and the reason for that is if you print, we need to be able to have it limited to 12 characters so all 4 products can print on your presentation. Want to point out too, so what you can do, and I'm going to show you a copy function later, but you do have a copy feature here. If you've keyed in that current mortgage, you could go ahead and select that. And what it will do is take that basic data from the current mortgage and carry it to your first product, and then you could do the updates. So in that case, if you did carry it over, you'll see the word current mortgage right here. Just switch it, make sure you mark it yes for refinance. This then will be able to provide you those closing cost details because it's a new mortgage. So with that, you can see how it carried over that remaining balance here. So it's just a straight refinance with an interest rate reduction. I kept the term at 180, and now let's move into the closing cost details. So with the closing cost details, you could see how you could put prepaid interest. So I just estimated 15. If you feel that they'll be closing closer to the end of the month, more like 7 days, you could go ahead and indicate that as well. And then you can always hover the mouse over it and see that dollar amount. So how many people have fee templates created? I'm going to go into the closing cost details and talk a little bit about fee templates. I could dive into it a little bit more if you want some more understanding about fee templates, but I'm just going to do just a quick overall review. But please open up your question area, and if you have any questions, please go ahead and let me know so I can address those for you. So with a fee template, if you're on an enterprise account, you might have fee templates already built for you in the client dropdown. If you don't, you can always contact your administrator or email us at support, and we would be able to help you develop fee templates on that enterprise account, and we can also develop it for the branch level. So everyone in your branch has access to those same fee templates to make it easy. So with the fee templates, you would go ahead and select your fee template, and you can see how it will go ahead and carry down. A lot of companies, you'll see like with lender's title insurance, how it's left empty. That is because the fee is really variable from loan to loan. And a lot of times you have to just key that fee in manually. So if you do, you could just go ahead and enter that amount. And if there's any other adjustments, maybe your appraisal might be different. If you brought a fee template down, it might not be exactly your fee branches fees. So if you make any kind of modifications here, you don't want to do it over and over again. So once you've made any kind of adjustments, so say my appraisal fee was $475, if you finished up those adjustments, at the very bottom right, you could see how you can save that template. So this is a quick way of building out the arsenal of your fee templates. So if you click on Save As, you can go ahead and rename that template. So if I say fees and I go ahead and put in today's date, you'll be able to then see that fee template in the dropdown. So that's a quick way of building out those fee templates, and you'll be able to modify those when you go into your settings. We have a fee tab, and that's where you could go ahead and update those fees. So really quick, I also just want to point out your two fees here. If you ever need to add a fee, you have add a fee. You can see how we have many fee descriptions that you could choose from. But if you don't see your fee description, you can always customize the fee. So with that, if you click on Add Custom Fee, here you can put in your fee description. If you're using the percentage field, you can have the percentage go off your loan amount or your property value, and indicate it if it's an APR or a prepaid item like a prepaid escrow. So if you're on the East Coast, I know there's doc stamps and items like that. This is where you could go ahead and customize any of those kind of fees, be able to indicate which field to use, the percentage, and then you can use the percentage field here. You could see on the screen you have a percentage as well as a dollar amount. So if you want to put a percentage, sometimes people might put $100, $200 for padding. It will then combine that figure. So that's how you use both of those fee buttons. And if you have any further questions, we can always talk about that as we continue creating the presentations. And now we have our MI, our monthly cost screen. you can see how items carried over because I did just start with that current mortgage, and then I have our MI. So you would adjust for that, be able to put that new MI factor in, and you'll notice over on the right hand side that we do provide the LTV. So it does say 90.51. We are going to work on this to bring it down to 80%. So now let's really quick just review the presentation itself, and then we're going to go back into the current mortgage and start working with those fields so you can see how it affects the output. So always make sure you put the quote date on. Always want to know when those rates are current through. And now we're looking at the presentation itself. So right now, the first thing I want to do is let's just talk about the presentation itself. So we have the summary area. We see that we have our lower interest rate. Our terms are the same. If we go into the more info button, what we want to do is focus on that LTV percentage so we can remove MI. If we go into the closing costs, this is where we're going to focus the LTV percentage. And then also with the, I want to point out with that payment breakdown, besides the P&I payment where you have great savings, you save a little bit on your hazard, but because the property value increased, you pay a little bit more on that monthly cost. So I want to be able to show where those monthly payment savings are, where you can highlight those for the borrower. So the first thing, Freedom Point. How can we get the Freedom Point to match? And where this comes into play is in the reinvestment strategy. So what we want to do is apply a monthly amount toward principal so we'll be able to match our Freedom Point. So let's go back into Edge and let's talk about the reinvestment. So the reinvestment strategy screen is in the analysis tab here. Once you're in the analysis, you want to go ahead on the middle left, just click on Adjust Reinvestment Strategy. So with that, you can see how a matrix goes ahead and pops up. So with that, let's go ahead and put $60 in. And you can see by applying $60 toward principal that your Freedom Point now is 14.8 years, and I match. So if they pay the new payment plus $60, they'll be on the same path for payoff. So now I went back to my presentation, and now you can see how our Freedom Point matches. We're on the same payoff, and now I have an additional line showing the reduction of payment. So let's see how adding $60 a month in the principal. Let me just go ahead. Oh, just not that. So with that, you'll have the reduction of principal. So now what we want to do, that we have our Freedom Point the same, let's go ahead and discuss a couple other options that can occur. So the one thing we want to do is we do not want to pay mortgage insurance anymore. So how would we be able to remove mortgage insurance, and how can we get that LTV down a little bit? So one, we do have a higher property value. That's one thing advantage. But when refinancing this loan, this person has money in their reserves. They have about $6,000 in the reserves that they're going to receive back, and they're going to apply it toward their principal. Currently, we're showing the loan amount, which is the ending balance of that current mortgage right here. So you can see it's at $167,448, and we want to show that to the borrower. We don't want to change that figure. So let me go into the current mortgage, and this is where that current mortgage payoff field comes into play. So let's go into Mortgage Coach, and we're going into our assumptions. Remember, this is where we work for our current mortgage. I'm going to choose the spending jump out, and I have a current total payoff field. The difference between the total current payoff field, and I'm going to advance the screen once more, and the remaining balance field is how it displays on this presentation, as well as how your cash to close is calculated. So with the remaining balance, you can see it's 167,448. This figure in that field in the remaining balance, that is what displays for your loan amount right here. That's how much is still owed on that current mortgage. So that field represents the remaining balance field. But they have paid off money, and by the time they do close, they know that that current total payoff amount is going to be 161,513 because they know they'll have a couple more payments, principal's going to be applied, and they also have that escrow reserve, so that will be able to be applied to principal to bring that dollar amount down. So with that, you can see how I hover my mouse over that field, and it goes ahead and provides a description. So with this, this field, anything that's put into this field does calculate your cash to close. And if you have a second mortgage, you always need to remember, if you do use this field, you need the ending balance of both of those fields. So you can see how that description is. And before we hit return, which will then save this data and apply it to principal, or work out your cash to close, I do want to point out how it's going to affect that. So you can see currently we have a cash to close of $59.76, but we are going to be reducing that current payoff amount. So let's go ahead and advance our screen. You can still see our remaining balance, and let's see how it affects. See, it already did. It went ahead and applied that additional money, brought it down, so our cash to close now is less because that current payoff field, that's what is used to calculate the cash to close. And if we go into our more info button, oops, it's not there yet, just one moment. We'll have to go in and reduce our LTV. So we have that information there. So let's go ahead and go back in. So that's one of the items. And the other item is the property value. And actually the property value has increased, and this is showing the old amount. So with that increase, let's go ahead and put it at 200,000. Just one moment. Whoops. And what I'm going to do is so with that, let's go ahead and increase our dollar amount for our property value. Just one moment. I just need to, nope, it's 205. Just one moment. The one thing I forgot to bring over was, actually I could see it on my 210. So I've already want to point out here, the property value, see, we also learn as we're going on our QA, want to point out, so you have the property value that is shown, and we have the 185 when the current mortgage was taken out, and that property has increased to 210. So with that, we have 210. I also just want to increase my loan amount just a tad, not much, but I just want to bump it to 168. So these are the two items that I'm going to fix or modify with my new product. So let's go back to Mortgage Coach. Let's update 210. And we wanted to take that base loan amount, we wanted to increase it just a tad to 178. 168, excuse me. So now that we have that updated, so we have your property value, because that's going to control your LTV percentage. So we want to make sure we increase that because it has increased over the last year. And make sure that you, if you wanted to increase it, you could go ahead and increase your baseline about just slightly. So as soon as I advance my screen, you can see not only in your database over in the upper right hand side in the under the graphs, you have your LTV. And if we go to the presentation itself, you can see how we have our 210 now. We've updated our loan amount just slightly, increased it. Want to go into the more info button. closing costs, you can see now we are at 80% LTV. And now what we want to do is remove that mortgage insurance and really take a look at the monthly savings now. So with the increase of the property value, you're able to show a lower LTV percentage to remove that MI, as well as that additional about $6,000 where we applied toward principal to bring that ending balance down. So now let's go into Mortgage Coach. Now that we're under 80%, let's remove that MI and let's see how that savings is going to increase. So now we've increased our savings. So let's go back to our presentation. It's 68 and now it's bumped to 197. So now they're saving monthly costs based on mortgage insurance as well as the rate. So this is something you'd be able to point out to your borrower. They've applied an additional $6,000 that they had in the reserves, as well as having that lower interest rate. So now also you could see how the monthly savings over that 60 months is now turning positive. We removed that MI, they're no longer paying, and you can see how now the interest in MI on the current mortgage, what figure that is, but now with the new product, all that is interest. You can see how much they're saving, not only with the reduced rate, but also with that mortgage insurance being removed. You then have your closing costs, and that's what we compare against. So you can now, when you're working with that current mortgage, so you remember when we go into the first screen, you have your current total payoff. Only put something in this field if it's going to be different than your remaining balance. That's the confusion, and that's a lot of times what the questions come through support is because the cash to close is incorrect, and it's because there's usually something in this field. So you would remove it, but this is a great way to be able to provide that payoff for your cash to close, but show them what that remaining balance is in current time. Any questions on that? I know it's a little confusing, but these two fields, I would say right now, are the biggest sticking points in our support, just understanding that. So you got your loan amount, but the cash to close is calculated based on that current mortgage payoff field. So next what I want to do is we have our product and we're showing them that lower rate. We showed them how to stay on track with that same freedom point by adding that $60. We removed mortgage insurance, so they have that greater savings now. But now, since they are disciplined, we're working with a disciplined borrower, I want to show them a second product. Since the borrower is currently paying $861, has no problem making that payment, let's show them how to continue making that payment by adding all $197 toward principal and see how much faster that will be paid off. So when we go back to Mortgage Coach, you want to go to the analysis screen. That's where the reinvestment strategy is, and this is where we're going to focus on that reinvestment strategy. But before we do that, I want to add a second product for a side-by-side comparison. So back into Mortgage Coach, if we go back one screen from the analysis, I'm in my products. The very last button in your product screen is add another product. So I'm going to click on that button, and let's go ahead and just do this with reinvestment. And this is where that copy feature comes in handy. So if you click on the copy from, look at your drop down, and I'm going to copy from that conventional 15-year product. If I press OK, you can see that product carried over for me, all my data, all my closing costs, as well as my monthly costs. So it's really quick to do that copy, and let me just show you one more time. It's just the copy from button right here. You have your drop down, and I chose conventional 15, and it brought my product directly over. It's a quick way of, if you're modifying rates, terms. It's a great way of just building a quick product, already having your fees and your monthly costs. So now we have two side-by-side products exactly the same. We want to be able to modify the second one for reinvestment. So let's go into that Reinvestment Strategies button. And instead of $60, you'll see at the very top it tells us how much savings. Let's put that whole amount of savings directly toward principal. And as soon as I press the return, you'll see how that freedom point changes. So keeping that same mortgage payment, they could pay off that loan or pay off the mortgage almost 2 years sooner. So let's see how that looks on the presentation. So if I press OK, advance the screen, and now you can see how my presentation now has a second product. And let's go ahead and clear out some of these highlights. And you can see in that reduction payment, we do show that $60 where you keep on the same freedom point, but if you apply that full amount, how much sooner they can pay it off. Again, you can see the 60 months, how much more savings because they're applying more money toward principal and paying less money in interest. So again, you can look into that more info and be able to see how much interest is being applied based now that you're applying more money toward principal. So now when you're working with refinances, a lot of time the borrower wants to know, when is my break-even point? I want to know my break-even point. How can you show that to the borrower? So again, if you go back to Mortgage Coach, that will take place in your analysis screen, just where the reinvestment was as well. So you can see at the short-term analysis months, we automatically default 60, but this is with, can be changed, and usually it's changed based on their conversation, how long the borrower's plans to be in the house. Is it 3 years, 5 years, 7 years? And you'll be able to adjust the graphs accordingly, be able to provide that picture directly for the borrower's picture. So, but to use this for break-even point, I'm going to go ahead and let's see what it looks like at 12 months. So if I change that 60 months to 12 months, you can see the graphs change below, and you can see that both of them are still negative. So he hasn't recouped his costs from refinancing yet in the 12-month period. Let's increase that, and let's see in 24 months if they recoup the cost. And you can see now it's positive, and they are. And you can just continue on 15 months, they still haven't broke even. 18 months, you could just find the exact month when it turns. So at 17th month, they still are in red. They haven't recouped, but by month 18, they've recouped their costs. So that's how you'd be able to show the break-even point. And then if I advance my screen, you can see how the presentation also will update and be able to show that break-even point in that short-term area. And what I'm going to do now is just focus a little bit on Edge Live, so you'll be able to show how that freedom point is. But I do want, is there any questions that you may have regarding refinances at all that you want me to go ahead and cover? I'm going to go ahead and break out the Edge Live right now, but please go ahead and open up the questionnaire. Is there something specific, even if it's not on a refinance, if there's something specific you want me to discuss, please go ahead and put it in the questionnaire. So now what I want to do is focus a little bit on Edge Live and how we discussed about how you can show them where the break-even point and be able to hold that conversation with the borrower. If you notice on the desktop in the lower right-hand corner, there's a share button. I'm just going in there really quick to grab my link. You'll also notice you could share that presentation rather easily. If you click on an email, it will go ahead and place that link directly into an email for you. But what I'm going to do, open up a new tab, and I placed the link in here, and this is how the borrower's presentation, how their view is. So as soon as they click on that link, you can see how they have that disclosure language. They click I understand, and they're able to view the presentation. The one thing I want to do is place it side by side, point out the differences between the borrower's presentation and the loan officer's presentation. And then we'll focus on Edge Live, and you'll be able to see side by side how you can go ahead and drive that presentation to the borrower. So first off, if you look at the two presentations side by side, the one on the right is the borrower's copy, the one on the left is your copy, the loan officer's copy. And how can you tell the difference right off the bat? If you look at the very bottom, you can see that Clear All button. The Clear All button is only on the loan officer's copy. It allows you to clear all the highlights at one time. So on the loan officers, if I left click on a field, that's where your highlights come in. You'll notice that once I highlighted on the with reinvestment product at the on the title, it highlighted all the column, but I drove the borrower's presentation. So you can see how I just highlighted the borrower's presentation at that same time. If I clear out, press the Clear All, I've cleared the highlights not only from my presentation, but the borrower's presentation as well. You want to talk about the monthly payment, show them how you remove the monthly mortgage insurance. If you click on the More Info in the summary area, you'd be able to then highlight the monthly cost for that mortgage insurance. You could see how, as I'm highlighting these fields, how I drive that presentation. Not only that, we can have in the short-term area, if you're holding that conversation on break even, you could change data while you're talking with the borrower. So if we go back to Mortgage Coach, let's put this back at 60. You'll be able to see how the presentation is going to update really quick to 60. And then you could talk about that conversation about break-even point. And you'd be able to show that to the borrower while you're talking to them on the phone. So really quickly, you could just go ahead and change that term to 18, make the modification, and you'll see how it will go ahead and update the presentation with that 16, and now it reflects 18, and you could talk about that break-even point. You also can remove products. So if I'm hovering my mouse over presentation and I select a report, this is where you can remove a presentation from your screen. So let me open this up a little bit so you can see it. So when you hover your mouse over presentation and you choose select report, you can see at the base you have all your different options for your different products. If I uncheck, say the one with reinvestment, advance my screen, you can see how the presentation will then be updated and have that product removed. And this is a great way to have a product created just like the reinvestment. And as you have your conversation with the borrower, you then can add that and be able to show them not just by adding the additional 60, but if you apply that same payment you're currently making, and you'll see that it will go ahead and update on the borrower's presentation and add that product just shortly. And then you can hold that conversation how, whoops, let's go ahead and get to the loan officer's copies you can highlight. And then you'd be able to point out that freedom point to them. So make that same payment you're currently making, and you'll have your loan paid off a little bit faster. So with that, that is what I was covering today was refinances. Is there any particular questions that you may have on refinances or a different product itself? I could go ahead and review those with you. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's training. Want to point out when I'm in the home screen, again, the help button, but I want to go into settings while I'm waiting to see if there's any questions. In setting, this is where your fee templates are. You can see this is where I created my fee template. This is where it's stored. So if I ever need to make any adjustments to my fee templates, just go into settings, fee template tab, make the adjustments. Want to point out in the lower right hand corner, the button fees. The button fees provides all your fee descriptions. So if you ever wanted to update a fee description you created, again, you go to your settings, to your fee tab, and click on fees, and you can update those descriptions. You also have a copy function in your templates, which is really quick to copy a feed template. You just highlight it, click the Save As button, and the Save As button will quickly copy a feed template for you. So with that, I don't see any other questions. I do want to point out that this call has been recorded and will be posted on our coaching call archive page, as well as with our Tuesday coaching calls. With that, if you have any questions, please email us at support and we'll be able to assist you with any questions. And have a great day, everyone, and let us know how we can help you. Thank you. Enjoy your day.